So Shamubeel, you just see this as the hardest set of forecasts you've had to do, changing them 5 times. I mean, things do look pretty dour, and the interest rate outlook you've got, you're way out from quite a few of those economists.
We are, and look, the fact of the matter is there's a huge amount of uncertainty with the outlook now. And not only do we have a domestic economy that's slowing, but we have global risks that are shooting off the scale. What we don't know is what's the outcome. Is it bad, worse, or really bad? And when you're choosing between these kinds of options, it's very hard to put together a central scenario that's informative. So, what we think is the balance of risks are that things will be pretty bad. And that means the Reserve Bank is not going to raise interest rates until at least the middle of 2013.
And you're talking about a long period of stagnation based on previous recessions. How long do you see that happening in New Zealand? As you say, we've been in there for about 3 years, but it seems like there's a few more years to come, you think?
Well, look, because the deleveraging process is quite long and it takes quite a bit of time before you're at a level where you're comfortable with your debt, what tends to happen is these kinds of sort of stagnations can be about 7 years. And we're about halfway through that, so that's the good news. We'll eventually get out of it, but we will be held down by us paying down debt and by what's happening out in the global economy.
And you mentioned in there that we were paying down debt quite slowly. Is there capacity to pay it down faster? Or are we sort of stuck with this snail's pace?
Look, savings rate has turned positive, and we're seeing mortgage equity being turning into injection. So we are paying down debt, but that's kind of stabilized, and I think we've probably reached the capacity of people to pay down debt. So you do have to have the cash flow in your weekly budget to pay down your mortgage, and I think we're probably going to see a continuation of a fairly slow pace of debt repayment in the household sector.
But most of that debt is held, as you said, by high income households. I mean, surely they could, I guess, take one for the team.
But if you don't have to, why would you? And we're all acting as rational, independent agents, and we're all doing what's right for us as individuals and families. And you still need to have leftover money to go on a holiday sometimes. You need to have some room for sanity, right?
Yeah.
And I think people are doing it pretty tough. And we are paying down debt. And the pain is much more pronounced in the low end of income scale. I think low-income households have been doing it really, really tough. And that will continue to be very much a challenge over the next couple of years.
And for any recovery to come, we sort of have to start spending again. No one's really spending. You've said basically we're at the whim of our trading partners buying our exports.
We are, and what's really happened is we're in this liquidity trap, and we're all kind of lacking in real confidence to do stuff. We're not spending money, we're not investing, we're not buying stuff, we're not really exporting a lot more outside of rural stuff. Government isn't spending, businesses aren't really investing, and it's kind of like, well, who's doing stuff? And that is the whole point of why we haven't had that much of a recovery, is because everybody's in a holding pattern. And that's why we keep on describing this as very much a grind, because we're all kind of trying to get enough confidence, enough capacity on our balance sheets to be more normal again.
And the government spending, you've given them a pretty dour outlook of Treasury's 2014-15 surplus track. I mean, there's no surplus in your projections.
There isn't, but we are very pessimistic, and it could be that we get there through cutting spending even more, or by raising revenue in some other way. So they do have some options in place. I mean, they've just come into government. They will get an update from the Treasury that will be much more realistic. That will take into account of what's happened in the global economy, and I think we will need to see a real plan of action from the government to deal with this.
The most likely is cutting working for families or interest-free student loans.
Look, interest-free student loans, QE service subsidies, the generosity of working for families, these are all things that can be targeted. These were things that National talked about when they were in opposition many years ago now, but these are still options. And if there is a constraint on revenue, then you do need to think about where the money is best spent. And
you made some interesting comments just finally on why you don't think China is going to completely tank. Why is China going to keep growing, do you think? Because that's what we're hinging everything on. That's what the government is hinging everything on.
And the global economy. And that's the reason why China will continue. It is a command and control economy, and it needs to have economic growth to have social cohesion. And for that to happen, they need to make sure there is enough jobs created. And they will do everything in their power to make it happen, especially because next year they have a transition of power, transition of leaders. That is not a time when you have a revolution or a massive amount of downturn in the economy. I simply don't see how the Chinese government would allow their economy to slow. And if it's a command and control economy, you can do what you like.
Fantastic. Oh, Merry Christmas.
And you.
And thanks again.
Thank you.